What if I told you that the financial system you trust every single day, your bank, your wire transfers, your cross-border payments, is quietly being rebuilt from the ground up? Not by your government, not by Wall Street, but by a single company that most people outside of crypto have never even heard of. Here's the thing that keeps me up at night. By the time the average person realizes what's happening, it will already be done. The pipes will already be laid, the infrastructure will already be live, and the question won't be, should we use this? It'll be, we're already using it, we just didn't know. That company is Ripple. And what they are quietly building alongside governments across this planet is nothing short of the most consequential financial architecture of our lifetime. Let me give you a mental model here, because I think most people approach this wrong. When people hear crypto, they think speculation, they think price charts and meme coins. And overnight millionaires, and sure, that world exists. But there's a completely different layer underneath all of that, a layer that isn't chasing retail hype, it's chasing sovereignty. It's chasing the ability for nations to move money the way the internet moves information, instantly, borderlessly, and without asking permission from a middleman. That's the game being played right now, and Ripple isn't just a player in that game. They may be the referee, the scoreboard, and the stadium all at once. Here's what tipped me off. A senior Ripple executive in a recorded interview casually dropped that Ripple is actively engaged with 50 governments around the world. Not pitching them, not emailing them, actively engaged, working meetings, policy discussions. Technology integrations. 50. There are roughly 195 countries on this planet. That means Ripple has a seat at the table with more than a quarter of the world's governments. Let that number breathe for a second, because I don't think most people even in the XRP community have fully absorbed what that means. Let's talk about why governments are suddenly so interested in blockchain-based money, specifically CBDCs or central bank digital currencies. Think about cash, physical cash. It costs money to print, to transport, to secure, to destroy. It's anonymous, which is useful for privacy but also useful for crime. And in an increasingly digital world, a significant portion of the population is already living cashless. In countries like Sweden, physical cash is nearly extinct. In Nigeria, mobile money is the dominant transaction method. Governments looked at this trend and realized something uncomfortable. If private companies like Visa, MasterCard, PayPal, and now stablecoins like US are becoming the de facto currency infrastructure, governments start losing something they have never, in all of recorded history, been willing to give up: monetary control. So the race began, not a race between countries and crypto rebels. A race between nations to digitize their own currencies before someone else's digital infrastructure became too embedded to remove. And here's where it gets fascinating, because building a central bank digital currency is not like building an app. This isn't a software update, this is redesigning the entire plumbing of a national economy. You need systems that can handle millions of transactions. You need programmability, the ability to embed rules directly into money itself. You need interoperability, so your digital dollar can talk to someone else's digital euro or digital yen without going through 6 correspondent banks and taking 3 days. That's an engineering mountain. And most central banks don't have the in-house talent to climb it alone, which is exactly why they're calling Ripple. Here's the angle most people miss completely. Everyone's asking, will Ripple's CBD tech use XRP? That's actually the wrong question. The better question is, what happens when dozens of sovereign digital currencies all need to talk to each other? Because here's the problem no one's solved yet. Japan's digital yen and Brazil's drex and the European digital euro, they're all being built on different tech stacks, with different rules, different privacy models, different programmability standards. In isolation, they work fine. But the moment a Brazilian exporter wants to get paid by a Japanese importer in real time using their respective CBDCs, you suddenly have a massive interoperability problem. Someone has to be the translator. Someone has to be the bridge. This is exactly the scenario that Ripple's technology, specifically the XRP ledger and the Interledger protocol, was engineered to solve. Not as an afterthought, from the very beginning. The XRP ledger was designed with cross-border, multi-currency atomic settlement at its core. The Interledger protocol was literally built to connect any payment network to any other regardless of the underlying technology. Think of it like the early internet. Before TCP or IP, different computer networks couldn't talk to each other. Your university network was isolated. Your government network was isolated. Then TCP or IP became the universal translator, and suddenly everything connected, and the internet as we know it was born. Ripple is quietly positioning itself as the TCP or IP of money. And the evidence isn't just theoretical. Brazil's Drex, one of the most advanced CBD projects in the world, has publicly cited Interledger protocol as a desired technology layer. Singapore's Monetary Authority, one of the most progressive financial regulators on Earth, has been working with Ripple for years, including through joint projects that explore cross-border CBD interoperability. The European banking world is watching Ripple's permissioned network model as a template for interbank digital settlement. These aren't breadcrumbs. This is a trail. Now here's where it gets interesting from an information standpoint and slightly maddening. We know about a handful of countries. Bhutan launched a pilot. Palau explored digital currency infrastructure. Georgia engaged with Ripple's CBD platform. Colombia has been part of various conversations. Montenegro explored options. But we know these names only because they disclosed it. Ripple, bound by NDAs, couldn't. So ask yourself, if Ripple is engaged with 50 governments and we can only publicly confirm about 6 or 7 of them, what's hiding behind the other 43? I'll tell you what I think is happening. The smaller countries went first. They were the testing ground, lower stakes, faster decision-making, less political noise. You don't test a new aircraft engine by strapping it to a jumbo jet with 400 passengers. You test it in controlled conditions first. Bhutan, with a population under 1 million, is the perfect laboratory. You prove the technology works. You prove it scales. You prove it's stable. Then you walk into the central bank of a G20 nation and you don't come with a pitch deck, you come with a case study. The bigger dominoes are being lined up right now. And when the first major economy officially announces a Ripple-powered digital currency infrastructure, watch how fast the others follow. Because nobody wants to be last. There's one more piece to this puzzle that almost nobody is connecting properly. Ripple launched Ripple, a US dollar-backed stablecoin, and the mainstream crypto commentary treated it like just another stablecoin competing with USD and USDC. They missed the point entirely. Ripple isn't just a stablecoin. It could be the United States' answer to the CBD question. Here's why. The US Federal Reserve has been deeply resistant to issuing a retail CBD, and honestly, for understandable political reasons. A government-issued digital dollar that tracks every transaction creates privacy concerns that would ignite a firestorm in Congress. But a privately issued stablecoin fully backed by US dollar reserves, regulated, transparent, and interoperable with Federal Reserve systems like FedNow, that's a different animal politically. This is what's called a synthetic CBD. The central bank doesn't issue it directly. But it's fully backed by central bank money, audited, regulated, and effectively functions as digital dollars in the global system. The US gets the benefits of digital currency infrastructure programmability, speed, cross-border reach without Congress having to vote on a government surveillance coin. And who's already built exactly this structure? Ripple, with Ripple. Whether this was intentional strategic positioning or fortuitous timing, the result is the same. Ripple now has a product that fits neatly into the gap the US government has left open. Let me zoom all the way out for a second because I think it's easy to get lost in the technical details and miss the magnitude of what we're watching. For centuries, global finance ran on relationships. The US dollar became the world's reserve currency not just because America was economically dominant, but because the systems built around it, SWIFT, correspondent banking, Bretton Woods, became the infrastructure everyone else depended on. Switching was too hard. The cost of exit was too high. We are at an inflection point where that infrastructure is being renegotiated. And the entity that provides the new pipes, the new settlement trails, the new interoperability layer, the new programmable money platform will have the kind of structural advantage that SWIFT has enjoyed for 50 years. Ripple is not trying to replace your bank, they're trying to replace the system that your bank depends on. 50 governments. Pilots in multiple countries. A stablecoin position for us, synthetic CBD status. A partnership ecosystem that includes some of the world's most sophisticated financial regulators. A technology stack, the XRP ledger, that has been running continuously and reliably for over a decade. The question was never really, will blockchain change finance? The question was always, whose blockchain? And it's starting to look like we might already know the answer. We just haven't been told yet. Stay curious, stay informed, and pay attention, because the announcements that change everything don't always sound loud when they happen. Sometimes they just sound like regulatory updates, like pilot programs. Like quiet handshakes between governments that prefer for now to keep things off the record until they don't. See you in the next one.